The void of space stretched silent and endless, a cold ocean without wind or light. Captain Elias Ward sat alone in the cockpit of the old patrol ship Resolute, the hum of the engines the only sound in the dark. He had been stationed at the edge of known space for 6 months. Watching dying stars and forgotten debris fields, humanity had grown far from Earth, spreading to hundreds of systems. But even now, fear of the alien empires lingered. Decades ago, the Vilary Dominion had burned human colonies and vanished into the void. The truce that followed was fragile, like glass held over fire. Elias stared at the radar when a faint signal blinked to life. It was weak and distorted, a distress beacon repeating an ancient emergency code. It came from the surface of a dead moon orbiting a fading red star. The system had been empty for centuries, according to every chart. Curiosity, or maybe instinct, made him turn the ship toward it. The moon was covered in gray dust and jagged canyons. No lights, no structures, just silence. The distress signal grew stronger as he descended. His landing gear hit the ground with a soft thud, and the silence became heavier. He stepped out wearing his cracked helmet and old combat suit. The air was thin, almost poisonous. Dust swirled around him as he followed the signal deeper into the canyon. Finally, he saw it. A small escape pod half buried in the rocks. Its hull was scorched black, alien markings running along its side like silver scars. Elias knelt beside it, wiping away the dust. The hatch was dented but not sealed. He pried it open carefully. The smell of burnt metal and strange oil filled the air. Inside he found her. The alien woman was slumped against the wall, her skin faintly glowing under the dim light. Her hair shimmered like white fire, and her face, though not human, carried something delicate and sad. Her breathing was shallow, a thin trail of blue blood running down her neck. Elias froze, recognizing her kind instantly. Vilary, the same species that once tried to erase Earth from existence. He raised his weapon, his heart pounding. One pull of the trigger, and it would all end. Then she opened her eyes. They were deep violet, filled with pain, but also something else. Fear. Her voice trembled through the translator. Please, don't. I am not of your kind. Elias stared at her for a long moment. The hatred of generations burned inside him, but what he saw wasn't a monster. It was someone dying, someone who looked more lost than dangerous. He lowered the weapon slowly. What are you doing here? He asked. She tried to speak but coughed. Her hands shook as she reached for him. They hunted me. I escaped. Please. Her voice faded. She collapsed against him, unconscious. Elias caught her carefully, feeling the heat from her skin through the suit. He looked up at the stars, knowing what this meant. If Command found out he had rescued an alien, a Vilary, they would court-martial him, but leaving her here would mean death, and something inside him couldn't do that. He carried her back to the ship, step by step. The metal floor of the Resolute echoed as he laid her gently in the medbay. He connected her to the oxygen supply and sealed the door. For a moment, he just watched her sleep, her breathing faint but steady. When she opened her eyes again, she looked at him with disbelief. Why? Did you help me? She asked weakly. Elias didn't answer right away. He sat down beside her and stared at the stars through the viewport. Because, he said finally, his voice low, we humans don't leave people to die. She blinked, confusion and warmth mixing in her gaze. You risk your life. For enemy? He turned to her, his expression calm but firm. If that's what it means to be human, he said, then yes. Silence filled the ship again, except for the soft hum of the life support system. Outside, the dying star flickered like a candle in the wind. Inside, two enemies shared a fragile peace. Before closing her eyes again, she whispered, You don't understand. If they find me, they'll kill you too. Elias smiled faintly. Then I guess we'll die together, he said, his tone steady but quiet. The alien woman looked at him one last time, her eyes soft with something he couldn't name, and before sleep claimed her, she murmured, "You are not like the others." Elias leaned back in his chair, staring at her glowing reflection in the glass. The weight of what he had done began to sink in. Somewhere out there, the Dominion was searching. And now, because of one act of mercy, he had become part of something far greater than a patrol mission. He looked at the stars once more and whispered to himself, "Then humanity will become yours." The Resolute drifted in the shadow of the dead moon, engines silent, lights dimmed to hide from scanners. Inside the medical bay, the alien woman, Lyra, lay motionless beneath a flickering lamp. Her wounds had closed faster than human flesh ever could, a faint blue light pulsing under her skin with every breath. Captain Elias Ward watched the monitor quietly. He had sent no report, no transmission, nothing. To command. The Resolute was just another patrol ship circling empty space, but Elias knew the truth now. His small ship had become a secret prison and a sanctuary at the same time. When Lyra finally woke, her violet eyes glowed faintly in the half-light. She sat up slowly, confused, her voice soft and trembling. "Where am I?" "You're aboard a human patrol vessel," Elias said, his voice calm but wary. "You were dying when I found you." She looked away, shame and fear mixing across her face. "You should have left me," she whispered. "My people will come for me, and they will destroy you." Elias crossed his arms. "Then they'll find nothing here," he said. "We're invisible." Lyra stared at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. "You risk everything for me," she murmured. "Do you even know who I am?" Elias hesitated. "Vailari," he said finally. "The kind that burned our colonies and left children screaming in the dust." Lyra lowered her head. "Not all of us wanted that," she said softly. "I was a scientist, forced to build weapons for the Dominion. When I refused to finish their human virus, they hunted me down." Elias felt a chill. "You mean they were still working on it?" She nodded. "The Dominion never stopped. They just waited until humanity became careless again." Her words echoed in the silence like thunder. Elias turned toward the window, staring at the broken moon outside. "So saving you might have just painted a target on every human world," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him with a strange sadness. "Maybe," she admitted. "But if I had finished that virus, you would all be dead already." Elias said nothing. He walked over to the console and locked the ship's transmitter under manual code. No signals in or out. Total isolation. Days passed. The ship drifted through the asteroid belt, hiding from Dominion patrols. Lyra spent her time studying the human ship's systems. She moved slowly, her steps soundless, her gaze always distant. Elias tried to act like a soldier, but every time he looked at her, he saw something breaking inside her, a kind of loneliness he recognized. They shared long silences, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's reactor. One night, while running diagnostics, Elias noticed something strange. The ship's external sensors were picking up faint energy spikes, ships jumping into nearby space, Dominion ships, dozens of them. He cursed under his breath. The Vailari had found the trail. Lyra appeared behind him quietly. "They're scanning for me," she said, her voice low and certain. "They'll burn the system until they find my signal." Elias stared at the radar, watching the red dots spread like blood across the screen. "Then we'll have to make them think you're already dead," he said. Lyra frowned. "How?" Elias tapped the control panel. "We fake a crash, dump debris with your DNA, and hide deep in the asteroid shadows." Lyra shook her head. "You're risking everything for someone who isn't even human." He looked at her, his voice steady. "You're not human, but you're alive. That's enough for me." For the first time, she smiled. A small, fragile thing, but it reached her eyes. "You humans are strange," she said quietly. "You destroy, yet you save." Elias gave a faint grin. "We like balance," he said. "Makes the universe nervous." They worked together through the night. Lyra recoded the Dominion's beacon frequency, while Elias programmed the reactor to simulate a critical explosion. At dawn, the ship dropped its decoy into open space, a glowing trail of wreckage and smoke spreading through the void. Moments later, Dominion interceptors arrived. Scanning the debris, Elias and Lyra watched in silence as the alien ships reported the false readings and turned away, disappearing back into hyperspace. Elias leaned back in his chair, exhaustion mixing with relief. "Looks like it worked," he said. Lyra looked at him with gratitude in her glowing eyes. "You saved me twice now," she said softly. "Why?" He didn't look at her, just stared into the stars. "Because maybe one day someone like you will do the same for one of us." For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the engines filled the silence. Lyra reached out slowly, her slender hand brushing his arm. "You may have doomed yourself," she said. "But you gave me hope." Elias turned to her, his voice quiet but steady. "Then it's worth it." Outside, the dead moon faded into the distance and the stars stretched endlessly ahead. But far behind them, unseen, one of the Dominion ships turned back, its scanners catching a ghost of life, one human signal hidden deep among the asteroids. The hunt had just begun. Silence wrapped the Resolute like a shroud. The fake wreckage drifted far behind them, cooling in the black void. For 2 days, Captain Elias Ward kept the ship dark, running only on emergency power, but even then, he could feel the Dominion's eyes searching. Lyra moved quietly through the corridors, her bare feet soft on the metal floor. She studied every panel, every sound, her senses sharper than any human's. Yet she felt something new, fear, not for herself but for the human who had saved her. From the cockpit, Elias watched the radar, hundreds of red blips blinking in and out like predators circling unseen. "They're not giving up," he murmured. Lyra stood beside him, her silver hair glinting faintly in the dim light. "They never do," she said. "The Dominion always finishes the hunt." Elias's jaw tightened. "Then let's make them regret starting it," he replied. They spent the next hours turning the Resolute into a ghost ship. Elias rerouted the power through old manual switches, hiding their heat signature. Lyra interfaced with the alien tech core she had smuggled from her pod. Her fingers moved fast, typing streams of glowing symbols. "What are you doing?" Elias asked. "Building a shield scrambler," she said. "If their sensors sweep this sector, they'll see only radiation ghosts." He nodded. Watching her work, for a moment he forgot she was alien. She looked determined, focused, alive in the soft light, but outside space shifted. A Dominion cruiser cut across the asteroid field like a shark through water. Its search beam sliced through the dark. Elias killed the engines. "Hold your breath," he whispered. The beam passed close, grazing the hull. Every sound in the ship vanished. Even their breathing seemed too loud. The cruiser paused, scanning, then turned away slowly. Only after it vanished did Lyra exhale. "They are getting closer," she said. "If they triangulate the radiation trail from your reactor, they'll find us within hours." Elias rubbed his temples. "Then we move first," she looked at him. "You want to attack them?" He gave a faint smile. "No, I want to make them chase a ghost." Together they designed a trap. Lyra recoded an old navigation probe to broadcast her life signature. Elias loaded the probe into the launch tube and aimed it toward the next system. "Once they lock on, they'll follow it straight into the nebula," he said. "The plasma storms there will fry their scanners." Lyra hesitated. "If they catch the trick, they will return angrier." Elias chuckled softly. "Then they'll meet an angry human next time." When the probe launched, it vanished like a shooting star minutes later. Dominion cruisers turned in unison. Pursuing the false trail, relief filled the cabin. But it didn't last. On the lower deck, the motion sensor blinked red. Elias frowned. "That's impossible, we're the only ones aboard." He grabbed his weapon and moved down the narrow corridor. Lyra followed silently. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied at the end of the hull. A maintenance hatch hissed open by itself. Elias aimed his gun. "Who's there?" No answer, only the soft hiss of air. He approached carefully, opened the hatch wider. Inside lay a small, round drone, scorched but active, Dominion markings across its side. "It must have attached to your hull before the decoy launch," Lyra said, horror in her voice. "It was transmitting our position." Elias didn't hesitate. He grabbed the drone, slammed it into the wall, and crushed it beneath his boot. Sparks burst out, the signal died, but the damage was done. Lyra turned to the radar screen. Red dots flickered back into view. Closer than before. They found us, she whispered. Elias rushed to the cockpit, engines roaring to life. The ship shook as asteroids scraped against its hull. "Hold tight!" he shouted. The Resolute burst from cover, weaving through floating rocks as plasma fire streaked past. Dominion fighters swarmed behind them, their beams lighting the void. Lyra gripped the console. "They're faster!" Elias grinned, adrenaline sharp in his veins. "But they're not smarter." He swung the ship toward a narrow canyon in a massive asteroid. The walls closed in, dust and rock flying. The fighters followed, firing wildly at the last moment. Elias triggered the rear thrusters and dropped a cluster of magnetic mines. The asteroids exploded, shockwaves tearing through the canyon. The Dominion ships vanished in fire, silence followed. Only static and the crackle of burning debris on the comms. Elias leaned back, breathing hard. "That should buy us some time." Lyra stared at him in awe. "You humans fight like you're already dead," she said softly. He smiled faintly. "That's because we fight for the living." Outside, the debris drifted, glowing like dying stars. But among the wreckage, a single Dominion warship turned slowly toward their direction. Massive and silent, Lyra's expression darkened. "That's not just a hunter," she said, her voice shaking. "That's Kareth's flagship." Elias looked out the viewport at the enormous vessel sliding into view, its hull covered in crimson symbols. "Who's Kareth?" Lyra's voice trembled. "My commander, the one who created the virus, the one who will never forgive betrayal." Elias stared at the warship's looming shadow, his hands tightening on the controls. "Then the real hunt," he said quietly, "is just beginning." The shadow of Kareth's flagship swallowed the stars. It was vast, black and ancient, like a god built from steel and hate. The sight of it made even the void feel small. Captain Elias Ward stared at it in silence, his reflection flickering across the glass. Lyra's voice broke the quiet. "We cannot fight that," she whispered, her tone trembling. "That ship carries 1,000 soldiers, and weapons that can melt moons." Elias didn't look away. "Then we'll have to make it bleed before it burns us." Lyra turned to him, disbelief in her glowing eyes. "You would die for this?" Elias smiled faintly. "For this? No, for you maybe." Her expression softened, a strange sadness glimmering behind her alien beauty. She moved closer, her voice quiet. "You are mad, human," he chuckled. "Maybe that's why we survived this long." They worked in silence for hours. Elias stripped the ship's reactor of its safety locks. Turning it into a weapon, Lyra connected her alien tech into the human systems, merging two enemies into one desperate machine. Sparks danced in the air, wires hissed. The small ship began to glow from within. "Once we're close enough," Elias said, "I'll overload the reactor, their shields will drop." "You can use your codes to open their core defenses," Lyra froze. "Overload the reactor? That will destroy your ship and you," he nodded. "That's the point." Her voice broke. "No, I can do it, I can stay." He turned sharply. "No, you get out." "You're the only one who can end this war, you said yourself. Your people will listen to you." Lyra's hands shook. Her eyes filled with blue light. "They won't listen to me," she whispered. "But they might listen to a human who gave his life for me." Elias looked at her. Stunned, the words cut deeper than he expected. He wanted to tell her to stop, to run, to live, but he couldn't. Because deep down he knew she was right. The Dominion flagship loomed closer, its weapons powered up, energy crackling across its hull. The Resolute moved forward like a tiny spark before a storm. Kareth's voice thundered across the comms, deep and cruel. "Lyra Velari, traitor to the Dominion, surrender yourself, and I will give the human a clean death." Lyra's face hardened. "He doesn't know what kind of death humans prefer," she said coldly. Elias grinned. "Let's show him." The Resolute charged ahead, shields glowing red as beams of plasma tore across its hull. The small ship shook violently, alarms screamed, panels sparked, but Elias held the controls steady, his knuckles white, his eyes calm. Lyra linked into the Dominion's network, her hands glowing as symbols streamed around her. Her voice echoed softly. "Their firewall is ancient. I can reach the reactor if you give me 30 seconds. Elias laughed bitterly. 30 seconds? I can give you 25 before we explode." The Resolute slammed through the enemy's outer shield. Hull plating melted. Metal screamed. Fire erupted in the cabin. Lyra's face lit up with data, her mind swimming through enemy code. "I'm in," she gasped. "Elias, now!" He pulled the final lever. The reactor roared to life, a sun being born inside a dying ship. The energy grew, shaking every bolt loose. The stars turned white. Lyra looked at him, her eyes shimmering with tears. "You should not have saved me." Elias smiled weakly. "Best mistake I ever made." She reached out and pressed her hand to his chest, glowing symbols spreading across his suit. "I won't let you die alone," she whispered. A brilliant flash erupted. The Resolute became light itself. A human ship turned into a weapon of impossible fire. The Dominion flagship's shields cracked. The explosion tore through its hull, flames swallowing steel and bone. When the light faded, silence returned to space. The Dominion flagship drifted crippled, burning slowly, and where the Resolute once was, nothing remained but dust and radiation echoes. Inside the wrecked Dominion bridge, Warlord Kareth knelt amid fire and ruin, his voice a whisper of disbelief. One human destroyed a godship far away among the debris. A single escape pod spun in the dark. Inside it, Lyra lay unconscious, the light from her skin dim but alive. Her hand still clutched the pendant Elias had worn, etched with the insignia of Earth Command. She opened her eyes weakly, whispering into the silence. "You kept your word, Elias. Humanity's fire burns even here." Her tears floated upward, glowing softly like stars. Weeks passed in the silence of space. The great Dominion warship lay dead, its broken hull drifting like a tomb, and yet from its ashes something began to change. Lyra's small escape pod floated through the wreckage, powered by the last spark of Elias's reactor. Inside she slept, surrounded by the soft hum of failing systems. For days her dreams were filled with his voice, warm and human, whispering through the static. Don't let it end here. When she finally woke, she was weak but alive. The human pendant still rested in her hand. Burned but whole, she placed it around her neck, her tears falling slowly in zero gravity. "You gave me your world," she whispered. "Now I will give it back." She repaired the pod with what little energy remained and sent a signal toward the edge of human territory. The message was simple, coordinates and a warning. "The Dominion is breaking." Weeks later, a human salvage fleet detected the transmission. They found the ruins of the Dominion ship, and in the middle of the wreckage, a single living being. When they pulled her aboard, the soldiers froze. They expected an enemy, but instead they found a woman who spoke their language with trembling sincerity. "I bring the promise of peace," Lyra said, "and the memory of a man named Elias Ward." Word spread quickly across human colonies and beyond. The story of the human who gave his life for an alien carried like fire through the stars. To some it was madness, to others it was a miracle. But to Lyra, it was a debt that could never be repaid. She stood before the human council, her silver hair dull from exhaustion, her eyes steady. "Elias saw something we all forgot," she said. "He believed that mercy is stronger than fear, and that fire can warm instead of destroy." The council listened in silence. For the first time, an alien spoke within Earth's halls without chains. Outside the chambers, people gathered, chanting the same words that had been found in his log. "Then humanity will become yours." Months passed. The Dominion splintered. Rebellion spread among the enslaved worlds. The story of Elias and Lyra became a spark, a legend told in the bars of miners and the songs of traders, and even in the classrooms of alien children who had never seen Earth. On the first anniversary of the battle, Lyra visited the new monument on Luna Base. It stood high above the gray dust, an iron statue of a man holding out his hand to the stars. At the base, the words were carved simply: Captain Elias Ward, who gave the fire of humanity to the void. Lyra knelt before it, the cold air brushing against her glowing skin. "You changed them," she whispered. "You changed us." She opened a small capsule and released the final piece of his ship's reactor core into the lunar wind. The particles drifted upward, scattering like embers until they vanished into the black sky. She smiled softly. "Now your fire belongs to every world," she said. From that day, the borders between human and alien began to fade. Not through war, but through stories. Through a single act of mercy that burned brighter than any weapon. And somewhere beyond the edge of known space, among the dust and the starlight, a faint echo drifted through the comms of passing ships, a man's voice, calm and human, whispering through the static. "Then humanity will become yours." The stars answered in silence, glowing warmer than before.